Hello, and my name is Pete Rushmer, and I'm your host today of A Half Dozen Things podcast. A Half Dozen Things is a podcast for business owners just like you. Whether you're an underdog hungry for success, or you're already smashing it but want to continue to level up, we are here each week for you to get insight and learning from the very best in the business. No fluff, no BS, and no self-proclaimed gurus talking about how easy business or life is.
We're going to do this in one take, no edits, okay, Kim? Okay. No pressure. I'm being joined today by the lovely Kimberly Lane from Dalrod or Dal Group, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. I know that you've actually listened to it. You're one of the 2 regular listeners that we have for the original Half Dozen Things podcast, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us. I've got very used to interviewing people online via Teams, but we're actually here in person at your head HQ, which is based in Peterborough. So if listeners don't know who Dalrod are or Dal Group are, please do have a look on the internet and check them out. Kimberly's going to be 3rd generation director of the business, and is sort of well on the development journey. So I know that you've had quite a bit of input with part of the Dal Group, which is the AHDT Teamwear brand, and building that up. So listeners might be a bit interested to hear about that. Certainly, Kim has been providing branded workwear, branded safety wear and that kind of thing to the Dalrod business and the franchises as well. So Dalrod, my understanding of Dalrod, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've got essentially do like drainage repairs, solutions, that kind of thing, and it's been built into a franchise, and it's now, I don't know how many franchises you've got, but it's a lot now.
Yes.
How many franchises are we at? Do you know?
Catching 20. I think we're about 18 now. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So and you've got sort of fairly aggressive growth plans as well from what I can see as well. You're sort of heavily recruiting people, and I think it's a fantastic franchise model as well for people who want to build a business. I think it's a great opportunity. It's certainly it's on the utility side of business, and it's one of those which is always needed, isn't it? So it's come rain or shine, there's always business there to be had. So, Kim, is it okay? Obviously, I've given you a bit of a waffled intro. I think you could probably do a bit of a better job. Are you able to just sort of introduce yourself and a bit about your background, sort of what you've been doing in your career so far?
Yeah, so Kim Lane. Obviously, I started at Dalrod. I've known it my whole life, being my parents' business. Started by my late grandfather, who passed away in 2008. Since then, my parents have had the business, so I've always sort of been close and been around it. Growing up sort of through school, was very much my aim to focus and be part of that business. When you finally get there, I think things kind of change, and you get to that age where it doesn't seem as appealing, but we stuck to it. I've moved about a little bit, had to play around in the business. I also had to play around with my own business, which is AHDT Teamwear, as you mentioned. We were a branding and embroidery print company based in Peterborough, which is growing massively beyond my expectations. So yeah, I work in both businesses today. I'm really getting on with my journey at Dalrod.
Yeah, nice. I think it's fantastic that you've joined the family business. So, how long ago was Dalrod founded?
So it was founded in 1985, like I say, by my grandfather and grandma.
Yeah.
He unfortunately passed away in 2008. Yeah. Quite surprising. My dad was, I don't know how old he was at the time, but it was sort of landed in his lap. He'd always worked in the business, but I think it came to him quicker than maybe he would have expected and hoped for. So yeah, he took on the business with my mum in 2008, and they've grown it from there. Yeah,
got you. And what sort of size was it? How many people in 2008, just out of interest?
Oh God, we had a small office over the road where you sometimes work now. I think it must have been perhaps 5 office staff. And the business has changed slightly because we obviously were a drainage company first. A lot of my work is done within the franchisor business. But yeah, they were a much smaller office-sized company, at least. Yeah,
got you. So, and now we're up to 18, 20 franchisees?
That's it, yeah.
So, that's some massive growth in, 14 years, isn't it? So it's not very long. It's grown hugely. Absolutely fantastic success story to have come out of Peterborough. So it's essentially for some of the listeners, they might not really understand sort of how a franchise works, and I've not really interviewed many franchisors. So are you able to just sort of explain how that that type of the business, that side of the business works?
Yeah, so obviously we have two businesses as such, Dalrod in Peterborough. We have the Dalrod drainage business, and we have the Dalrod UK, which we call the franchisor. So the drainage business runs as one of our franchisees now, but obviously they're both owned by the family, them ones. We then sell the business model and exactly how to run that drainage business after the success that we had with Dalrod Peterborough, and we share that to others around the country.
Perfect. Yeah, so that makes total sense. And then you're involved with that franchisor side of the business, which I suppose you've got a HQ full of people of varying disciplines who help support the franchisees. I always get my franchisors and my franchisees mixed up. But yeah, so as a franchisor, you support the franchisees with sort of the head office operations. So what sort of people do you have in your team here at Dalrod?
So we have the different departments. We have sort of the key accounts, which look after our large customers. It's a really busy department downstairs. They're sharing out the jobs to all the franchisees, getting all their paperwork in order and helping that from start to finish. Again, we cover the account side of things, so we do all of the invoicing here at head office. We have our franchise sort of operations team that's a busy little department looking after the whole operation, and it sounds more simple than it is to sort of hand out the business and give someone to run with it, but to make sure that the brand is represented exactly how we aim for it to be is a tough job.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important, and I know that you've got sort of health and safety people downstairs, marketing people who do sort of various roles in the business and help support the franchisees. And the thing is with the franchise model is you often get people who buy into the brand with the investment, but they may not have much experience of running a business for a long time, or all varying levels of experience. So you've got to be able to help support that and make sure they get a return on investment as well in the brand, but also that they're representing your brand in the right way too. So that's really important. Okay, cool. So are you able to just tell me a bit more about HD Teamwear? When did you found that? That's your baby, right? Tell me a bit more about HD Teamwear.
It is. My parents actually, it came about when my parents owned the ice hockey team in Peterborough. So they own the Peterborough Phantoms, and we were constantly looking for suppliers of the teamwear, and we couldn't find it. So at the time we thought, let's go and source it ourselves. So we started just sort of sourcing from a factory in Czech at the time. Mm-hmm. We sourced the things, and then slowly we started looking at the clothing to sell off the ice for the fans and stuff, and buying it, and it's just the unreliability. You're paying premium for it. Again, let's train up and do it ourselves. So we bought some of the machinery, trained up, and again we just worked for ourselves at that time. And then people were catching on, asking how we could do it, if we could do it for them as well. So we slowly looked at the model. I mean, the ice hockey market in England is not the biggest, so we sort of looked at, do we really want to make this a business, or are we serving ourselves? So I made the step to make that a business, and now we cover more workwear, more branded PPE. Obviously we have the embroidery and the printing here in Peterborough, so no, it's really good fun. I really enjoy that side of the business. Definitely.
I think for people listening, if you want branded workwear or branded teamwear, for example, even if it's a sports team or for your business, particularly the PPE, I think there's a fantastic range of products, and I've been really impressed with Kim's range. For Flagship, the brand's really important to us as well, and making sure that we present ourselves nicely. And sometimes the workwear uniform can be a bit fuddy-duddy, can't it? And I love the way that you have sort of brought that to life. And if you have a chat with Kim, what she's able to do is she does like your own little I don't know, what would you call it? Is it a prospectus? It's like a mini catalogue, essentially with like the different products that you can choose from to help the team, from baseball caps through to high vis clothing as well. I think it's dead smart. Everything you think that a drainage engineer would need to wear, essentially you're able to provide, right, from hard hats all the way through. It's a good opportunity, even down to like branded stationery as well. I've certainly got my little Flagship notebook with Pete written on it. I actually mislaid it at customers the other day, which is a bit embarrassing. That reminds me I need to go and get it, because there's certainly some sensitive information from my side. Fortunately, it isn't any customer information, so that's good. It's only just my own personal notes. So, fantastic. Okay, so Kim has kindly prepared a half dozen things for us today, and I'm really interested and excited to get delved into those. So the first one's around communication. The second is trust and relationships. The third is family values. Fourth, teamwork. Five, don't take it personally. And sixth is patience. So really, really interested to start hearing about these. So, before I start though, I did forget. I was going to probe you a little bit more on the ice hockey. Tell me a bit about sort of your ice hockey journey. I know sort of your parents owned Phantoms for a while, and so you've sort of come up through there. But certainly you're mixing time between UK and Sweden at the moment as well, right?
I am, yeah. So I'm actually based in Sweden. I would say home is there. I met my partner over there a couple of years ago. We bought a house and sort of haven't looked back. But I am sort of back over monthly. Every 4 weeks I pop over and, hoping for a sponsor by Ryanair while we're here today.
That'd be good.
But, so the hockey I started when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And it just became a lifestyle. I was fortunate enough to travel the world. I've been to more countries than I can count. I actually lived in Switzerland as well. I played pro over there. When would that have been? From about the age of 19 to 20. I played a couple of years of pro hockey, which as a female athlete I think was really great fun.
That's awesome.
An awesome opportunity, yeah. So I played in Peterborough, I played in Bracknell in England, went over to Switzerland, and then finally ended in Sweden, where I finished my career there.
Cool. That's dead cool. And do you still play at all now, or not anymore now?
No, not anymore.
Focus on business now?
Yeah, I mean, actually in Sweden they have like a company hockey, they call it, which is networking hockey. So in England, where you'd normally go for like a round of golf, they actually play hockey, and then you have breakfast and network afterwards.
That's dead cool.
So we do that sometimes.
That is dead cool. And what's Sweden like to... what's Sweden like to live? It's like very clean, and I know it's quite expensive as well, right?
It is, yeah. But yeah, you get what you pay for there. No, it's a lovely country. I feel really safe. It's really pretty. It's the weather's a little bit up and down, but no, I love it.
So have we got Dalrod Sweden coming soon? Is that part of the plan?
Announced on the podcast. Yeah. Just let Dad know.
Oh, okay.
Is
he going to have apoplexy when he listens back? Oh, good old Dave. Shout out to Dave. I've tried to get Dave on the podcast numerous times, but I think he's a bit shy. I don't know if he's not a big fan of coming on. So, but Dave, we're keen to have you on if you're interested and you're listening. I think Kim's doing a fantastic job though, so you've got to try and live up to the family expectations that Kim's setting. Brilliant. Yeah, so I love ice hockey. What's women's ice hockey like in comparison to men's? Is there a much disparity between the sexes, or is it growing like football is? How is that?
I think it's growing perhaps slower in this country than Sweden. Are quite far ahead with that. All the games are sort of played on TV. You can watch all the top league games. I think that the physicality of it, that's obviously a different aspect, and you kind of watch a different game when you watch women's hockey, the same as women's football. They're creating their own sort of style of game, so cool. I really enjoy watching it. I think that the players are really skilled, and it's going in the right direction.
I see from a football point of view, I see a lot of the women's football as technically impressive in comparison to the men's, and essentially the real difference is in the physicality, potentially the speed, that kind of thing.
Speed, yeah.
Okay, brill, cool. Right, so let's get on with the half dozen things. I can remember the first one, which was communication. Tell me why, Kim, communication is important for you.
I think a lot of this stems from obviously living in Sweden. I run at least the HD Teamwear. I'm a lot more hands-on. Dalrod, we have a lot more people to run the business here in England as well. So, but for HD Teamwear, communication is just everything. Since COVID happened and being on Teams, it kind of did me a whole favour of you can work that way. But I think, to communicate, I think every problem that we have in, let's say in the Dalrod business, whenever a problem hits our table and we sit as a team and look at that, the key element that sticks out is communication every single time. And it's a lack of in so many different ways. So I just think if you can get that right, you have a fantastic business. So for me, that's something that you're constantly working on. I don't know anyone that's got it perfect, but it's huge.
Yeah, definitely. There's always scope for improvement and evolving the way we work. I think it's interesting you mentioned how sort of COVID has had that impact with you being based in Sweden, and people have become much more comfortable with remote working, haven't they? And then working on Teams and that kind of thing too. I would have thought, and just a question for you really, historically, and I've worked in businesses similar to Dalrod in my past, and generally speaking, people people in businesses like this often think you need to be visible for you to demonstrate that you're working.
Yeah.
Right. So do you have that kind of challenge? Because you can quite easily work full time on this business in Sweden and not even come back, and you could be absolutely successful, productive, and have genuinely high impact on the business as well. Have you had sort of issues with people's perception of what you're doing when you're remote from the office, for example?
Not that I've really noticed, actually. I think because I came into the business at COVID times where everyone was out of the office. It wasn't any different than what they were doing, whether they were in their house in Warrington to where I was in Sweden. We weren't seeing each other. I think I try really hard with the communication. I'm constantly on Teams, constantly on my phone, and just trying to speak with the team in work ways, but also in personal ways too. But no, I haven't experienced anything yet. Whether they say it behind my back, I don't know.
I'm sure it's all positive. I certainly I've delivered some training here with some of the leadership team, and it's always positive about the leadership team. So there's no challenges there. So secondly, we've got trust and relationships as the second area. So tell me a bit more about how that fits into your business. Yeah,
I think again that links to sort of the communication. Specifically for me, for being away, my HD, which is my little baby, I sort of leave in the hands of Andrew and Amelia, who do a fantastic job, by the way. Shout out to them. But yeah, it's just that trust, and to get the trust, I think you need to build that relationship. And I that's one part of the business that I really enjoy doing, especially in Dalrod as well. I love getting to know the franchisees. I think you get such a wide variety of people, all with the same goal, and they just want different ways to get there. And I love, when we have the conference events and getting to know them people, building the relationships. That's probably my favourite part of business. That's cool.
Okay, cool. So tell me a bit more about the conferences then. What is that? What happens there?
Yeah, so we had the first one, not the first one, but since we've grown, because we grew quite quickly. So the number of franchisees jumped from maybe 5 or 6 to the 18 that we had at the last conference. So we get everyone together one day of the year at the moment, meet in a hotel. We have loads of great guest speakers and people come in for the franchisees to listen to help them with their business, give them advice. We also talk a little bit ourselves. Again, it's just that day of building relationships. Nice. And then we have a nice evening meal and sometimes a guest speaker there too. It was Eddie the Eagle last year, actually.
Eddie the Eagle?
Yeah, which I had no idea who he was before he came in, but I had to Google. But he was really good.
That's dead cool. So those people who do need to Google Eddie the Eagle, to be honest, I don't know a lot about him because I'm probably a bit young, but I think he was like the first English ski jumper, I think, wasn't he? And I think he's famous for being terrible.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a film and everything, I think. I've not watched it, but yeah. But yeah, was he a good speaker though?
He was really good.
Was he?
Yeah, I'd recommend him, definitely.
Did he talk about being terrible?
Yeah. He admits it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But he tried really hard.
Yeah, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
That is important. No, fantastic. Okay, cool. So obviously trust and relationship. So the trust comes off the back of having a solid relationship with people. So you've got Amelia and who was it? Sorry, runs HD? Andrew. So shout out to these guys. They run HD Teamwear physically when you're not about. So how do you sort of manage that? Do you sort of let them to it? Just sort of give me a bit of an insight into sort of your sort of leadership style with that.
Yeah, so I think it took a bit of time. I think we have an average age in HD, which is quite impressive, of about 23.
Wow.
So yeah, we're all pretty young. But I think that's really great fun, and I think it's a nice USP for the business that we're young, we're modern, and we have these different ideas. Cool. But yeah, so when we're away, it's FaceTime, Teams, and text message, and I'm pretty sure they hate seeing my name come up on their phone. But no, we talk every day. We are setting, as my Dalrod work has got busier since the new year, those guys really have stepped up, and they are, it's really laying off the amount of impact that I have in the business, and finally stepping back as hard as it can sometimes be. Yeah,
that's really cool that you've been able to sort of tether that back and be able to grow Andrew and Amelia into being able to sort of run that without the need for your input, as your responsibility with Dalrod's grown over the past sort of 3 months or so. I think that's really, really interesting. So, okay, cool. And then has it been difficult for you as like third generation business, you sort of stepping up into, I think your role is director designate, is that correct? Yeah. So obviously you're following mum and dad's footsteps grandparents' footsteps too.
Yep.
How is that for you? What does that feel like?
I think it's quite a lot of pressure. Sometimes when you step back and think about it, when you're in it, you don't see that. But stepping back, it is quite a lot of pressure. I think I'm really fortunate for the opportunity my mum and dad give me. Yeah, it's crazy that they do that sometimes. But no, it is. I'm really honoured to have that. I think my dad reminds me of the stat of third generation. I can't remember what it is, but he often reminds me it's not a good one.
Oh, really? Right, okay.
But I'm determined to beat it. And yeah, so I think I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity. My dad, his dad passed away quite suddenly, so he sort of landed the business, and his dad never got to see him do it. And I think I always question him, like, why do you want to leave it so soon? He's just sort of 52 at the time, and he's keen to step back in the next few years. And I think he's really happy to see me and support me have the business, which I think is a totally different way that he got it. And
definitely. I think he's obviously he's quite conscious. I think it must have been a real shock to have had to take it on so quickly, and to have to run it as well. So I think fair play to want to sort of wind back sort of relatively early speaking. And obviously he must have a lot of trust and faith in the team and the people around as well to be able to do that. So okay, so obviously you must sort of feel the pressure a little bit with that. I don't know what the statistic is around third generation, but I assume there's like this sort of stereotype of that you've sort of grown up around a business that is successful and it is growing, and that sort of you've not necessarily seen the growing. And I sort of think and reflect on what that must be like, or would be like, with Flagship, for example, because we've kind of start from nothing, and then you sort of start to grow the business, and it's been sort of a real challenge. So I suppose there's a bit of a worry around essentially you taking it for granted, I suppose. But I suppose you're already conscious of that, right? So you're never really going to take that for granted anyway. You know you're coming into a business that's thriving, but essentially as long as you continue to follow the model and evolve and grow, there's not going to be an issue, right? No,
yeah, exactly. That's the way you've got to look at it. But it is that you don't see that struggle that they sort of had. My mum was in the business since she was about 14, 15. So she's sort of been on the whole journey with them as well.
Okay. So apart from obviously feeling a bit of pressure, is there, what would your goals be? I know that this sounds like a job interview. I don't mean it sound like a job interview at all. But for the next sort of 5-10 years, what would you think would be a good sort of growth plan for the Dal Group?
I think to saturate the UK is our biggest aim over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. We do have, obviously, the 18 franchisees around the country, but to fill some gaps in that would be a real benefit to the group. And then, just to explore some other things. I think I've always, I want to be better than my mum and dad.
So there's a little bit of competitiveness as well.
Yeah, I think I'm really, really keen to keep it going, to improve it, and.
Cool. And Dalrod Sweden, right?
That's the plan.
Dalrod Global. I reckon world domination. Dave, you heard it here first.
You could have some nice trucks in Sweden, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is true. They are. Yeah, and I think I don't know. I couldn't imagine. It sort of blows my brain even thinking about starting to try and take Flagship into another country. I just think that hurts my brain too much to even think about it, really. But what I admire about the franchise concept is that I think it's quite a solid business model, isn't it? Because you build the brand, you build the model, and then you've got people around the country. Because one of the things that companies are challenged by is how do they maintain control and standards geographically when you grow the business. But franchising is such a nice way to do that, because the people who are helping to grow it are so invested in it personally as well, aren't they? So they want to see it succeed too. And they benefit from that.
The family values and that come in is all of our franchisees sort of buy into that. We have a fantastic network that really, they buy into Dalrod for what Dalrod is, and they have the same sort of view on that. So they represent us fantastically around the country, which is fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, so that is the third area. So we're moving on to sort of family values, and obviously you've given us some insight there. family, interestingly. So I've been doing a bit of work on NLP. Have you come across NLP at all? No. So some of the listeners may not have heard of that, but I had a guest on recently called Bevis Moynihan, and he is an NLP coach and facilitator, get my words out. And we've been doing a bit of work together for the past nearly 12 months. And it's a little bit like therapy, but it's around neuro-linguistic programming, and it deals with those that have read the chimp paradox, for example. It deals with that pattern that we run, that we've grown up, and the patterns that we run, and understanding when we tell ourselves stories and stuff like that, we sort of start to unravel that sort of thing. And what it also deals with is understanding what our values are as people, and we've been doing a bit of work around that, and a bit of work around the business and the values as well. Now, actually, my highest value is family. So that's the thing so value motivator, whatever you want to call it, that is what motivates me most, is around family. And I think that's probably why I'm drawn, and I love working with Dalrod. I love working with the group, because there is such a family value. It's such a family business, and it's also a shining example of what a growing family business looks like as well. I find it really inspiring. So it's interesting that you put family values on there. What does that mean for you? What are family values, and how do you embed that in a growing business that's sort of looking to go national?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's sort of the understanding and the empathy for the people around you. So treating them how you want to be treated, being fair, I think is a massive thing. Work is a huge part of our lives, but it's not everything, and it's that work-life balance that we're definitely trying to work on at the moment. I think COVID made everyone realise that a little bit. But yeah, I think the family values, we're obviously a family ourselves, and yeah, we make it one big family at Dalrod. But no, I think it's hard to pin it down exactly what I mean by those into just words. It's more the behaviour and the view around the office.
Yeah, and I think it's really visible when I come into the office, and whenever I deal with you or any of the team as well, you've got this vibe. Like, I go over to the Peterborough business side. So at Dalrod, you've got like HQ one side of the street, and then you've got the actual Peterborough Dalrod business, the other side. And I go in, and I've done some work with Jim, who's like the site manager there, and your mum Jo, she's like in the office with him, and it's just like there's such a nice family feel, and I love that, and I think that sort of breathed through the business. But I think it's what's important with family is obviously you've got that level of empathy and understanding, but you've also got that challenge as well. You've got that challenge around making sure you're supporting each other, making sure you're bringing your best, but also understanding that you've got a work-life balance, and that must be quite challenging. And that's sort of where I'm heading with the next question, because the type of work you do with sort of drainage and that kind of thing, it can be a 24-hour business. Yeah. So that could be a real challenge. How do you look to sort of manage that with the work-life balance? It must be quite challenging. Yeah,
I think everyone's got to have that teamwork and working together. Obviously, it is when someone rings the phone because they've got sewage spilling everywhere, you're on hand to get it sorted ASAP. And I think it's just that understanding. People have worked in the business for quite a while. They just support each other. We try and work in the office. We now have some hybrid working. But no, it is the team downstairs. They really do pull together and support each other to get a job done.
Hi, it's Pete from Flagship Partners. We're really proud to sponsor a Half Dozen Things podcast. At Flagship Partners, we take road safety really seriously, and we're your road safety partnership. We help transport companies with compliance and training across their businesses, including first aid, driver CPC, and other transport management services. So if you're FORS accredited or you want to improve your operator compliance risk score, give Flagship Partners a call today.
Awesome. And I think we were sort of talking about the company values recently as well, and we're sat in the boardroom here, and you've got the Dal Group values which have been rolled out across the business, and that all leads towards helping drive the values through the business and the way that people behave as well. What's obviously when a business grows, it could be quite challenging to sort of make sure that those values are embedded. How do you see, sort of whilst we're talking about family and values, how are you seeing rolling out and maintaining values within an organisation, particularly a franchise business where you've got sort of geographically a large group of people? How do you help to sort of embed those values through the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think our main focus is we've really heavily focused in them sort of this year since working with yourself. It's just talking about them, it's just embedding it, it's behaving like it from the top. I think it's really important that we lay the foundations down, and the team have really bought into the whole thing. We do the prizes and we have the team vote for each other on valued behaviour and acknowledge each other, but I think the main thing is leading that from the top.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome. How did that go down? So interestingly for listeners, we did some work recently around sort of bringing the values into the business, and then you've got this mechanism now where people can vote for each other. It's not like an employee of the month. It's actually around people who demonstrate the company values or live the values in a certain way. They can be nominated for something specific they might have done one month, which really sort of lives the values, and it's a great way of helping to embed them through the business. How's that sort of gone down? Because that's quite a recent thing. What happened?
Yeah, people took to it really well, actually. I think it's actually getting quite competitive.
Okay, which is always good.
Yeah, the next one's coming soon. So, yeah, I think it was a nice... And the people, even because we shared, like, the nominations, what other people had said about people who were nominated maybe didn't win. And I think even the acknowledgement from a nomination was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was really nice to actually do as well.
Love that. Yeah, so sometimes, like, and we, part of working on values and working on motivators and that kind of thing, sometimes just recognising, even if the competition's great and competition is great, but also just recognising that people have done great work is fantastic, isn't it? And having that opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, I think massively.
And then that drives better work all the time and drives goodwill and what we call discretionary effort. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Which leads us really nicely onto your fourth half dozen thing, which is around teamwork.
Yeah.
So obviously we're talking about some of the things that you've been doing to embed teamwork. Tell me a bit more. Let's use a slightly different example. How have you implemented what you've learned, or has what you've learned as part of being pro ice hockey? How have you, or do you look to try and implement that as part of teamwork within the business? I thought that would be an interesting take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy how much sport can relate to business, and how I finished playing hockey 2 years ago, and I'd been playing it since I was 8, so I'd played for like 15 years. It was crazy to just finish one day. But because the business was so busy and I was enjoying it, it was so easy to step away from that, because I had my team off the ice was like having a team on the ice. And I honestly think it's such a good sort of, you can combine them together so well. It's one of my favourite things. I don't think I could work in a business on my own. I think the team downstairs, the team of the network, really makes everything enjoyable for me. So I think it's so comparable. Just the way you support each other. I mean, in hockey you cover a position if someone's gone out, or you cover them. In here you cover someone's sick worker if they're too busy. You get in there and you just get the job done. So. Awesome.
Yeah, it's that shared experience as well. Is it sort of brings people together and helps drive teamwork as well. But it's a really interesting take on it, thinking about, because when I sometimes, or historically, when I'd have thought about a team and my sports team, because I think like back to my days of football and that kind of thing, and you think about the camaraderie and the lads having banter and hiding each other's pants and that kind of stuff, throwing each other's socks into the shower or something like that, so they've got wet feet for the rest of the day. Sunday league football. I was never of a standard like you obviously were for hockey, but I think about that and I think, oh wow, that's really unprofessional. But actually, there's so much value in having that banter as well, as long as it's on the right side of things, to be able to have fun and have banter at work, because people really love getting involved in that and having that shared experience. So yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think the teamwork happens without people even realising it's there. I think it's from them relationships that you work as a team without really realising. It just feels second nature to cover that position, or to do whatever you need to do to get the job done.
Got you. Okay, so I've got a bit of a curveball for you, because I know in the next session that I'm doing with, and I think this might lead into the fifth area actually around not taking things personally, and that it links nicely with teamwork as well. So one of my questions, I think, is next week I'm going to be sitting down with some of the managers in your business and talking about conflict resolution, and we're dealing with conflict and managing conflict.
Yep.
And we'll be doing that as part of a training session with them. So how does conflict occur in the business, and obviously how do you feel that the teamwork and not taking things personally, how does that sort of contribute to sort of reducing conflict in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we face all the time. I think it's quite healthy for it to be there as well. I'd say some of the conflict probably comes in our business with sort of the busyness and where resources can come from at that time, and where to focus first, so everyone's putting their hand up for it to be them, and that can cause some conflict between them. But I think again it links back to our first one of communication. If people sat down, talk and understand, I think, and that's happening more within the business as we're working on the values, people are understanding and being more empathetic. And it's, I think some of the feedback that I've had is people now understand what other people are doing in their role, and they can actually understand why perhaps they're acting in a certain way or said one comment. So no, I think it's all about the communication again.
Yeah, definitely, and absolutely, yeah, it totally rounds back to communication. I think conflict naturally will always occur in most businesses, because to be profitable in a business, you need to be lean. So I always have this take with people of there's always going to be a level of conflict, because people need to feel stretched, and then stretch creates stress potentially, and then stress can create conflict. But it's like you say, teamwork and communication and those kinds of things. That's how we sort of work through empathy. We've been doing a bit of work around empathy with the managers, and I think it's been great going through that sort of management program with them around sort of developing understanding of different departments and interdepartmental understanding, because sometimes you can create like this silo effect of, oh well, marketing don't do this, or accounts don't do that, or all that BS that you get in businesses, and it's happening up and down the country and in fleet businesses or whatever it may be, from department to department. But essentially, if you sort of build that empathy, interestingly, something we're going to look at, and it's maybe for another podcast, but part of the conflict resolution is you look at this like dual model of assertiveness against cooperation. So you've got different levels of assertiveness and a different level of cooperation. So assertiveness is about me and about what I want to get out of something as an individual, and where do I need that to be. And your level of cooperativeness is understanding other people and what they need as well. So, and depending on the level of conflict and what it's regarding, depends on how much assertiveness might be needed and how much cooperation might be needed. So there's a bit of a science to it. But I obviously I enjoy that sort of stuff. So tell me a bit more then. Don't take it personally. That's obviously quite an important one for you, as it came up fifth. What sort of I've assumed there that it's meant around conflict, but is that what you meant by that? Is there sort of anything further you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think it can work in sort of both sides of the business. I think on the smaller side of HD, it was very much around like the personal side of when I'd see like my friends or a company that I knew, and you'd give them a quote and they'd chose someone else, and it was like, it took me a really long time to figure out why, or not even to figure out why, just to understand and to swallow that's going to happen sometime. And it's not, they're not choosing Kim, they're just not choosing that brand because they found something else that they like. And that I'm still probably working on that now. Don't take it personal in here. I think I'm a big one for feedback, and I think playing probably the sports link into that is you can get something from your coach, especially playing overseas. Their English wasn't always up to scratch, so you got some quite direct feedback. But just take it the right way. It's no one's here to be mean to another, like no one's here to hurt one another. It's all constructive. You don't like that word, do you?
No, it's criticism. I don't like.
Criticism. Okay. So I said something downstairs, and the group of managers told me off. They were like, "Pete said we can't say that." Like,
so just give people a little bit of insight. So obviously, having done a little bit of work with the managers, so I just asked them to reframe constructive criticism, because people often say constructive criticism, and I just said to them, just try and reframe it as developmental feedback. So by using developmental feedback, you kind of take that the criticism, the negative element away from it, because when people say constructive criticism, it automatically that gives a negative connotation to feedback, whereas feedback's positive. Feedback's a great thing to have. It should be seen as positive. So I think sometimes it's the NLP, it's like the language, it's taking it away from being negative and going, oh, that's really positive. It's actually a gift. Someone's given me a gift by offering me feedback. So I asked them to move away from it, but they really jumped on it. They were like, yeah, we're not going to use constructive criticism anymore.
They've been telling me off downstairs, but no. My partner's a hockey coach full time, and so she works in hockey all the time. Sort of coaching's one aspect of it, but yeah, she uses the words like sort of feedback and feed forward.
Oh, I like that.
So instead, like, you always feed back, but you can also feed forward. So it works in that way. So I stole that one a little bit.
Yeah, I love that.
But I love feedback. I think I've always quite liked receiving it. Because you also get good stuff too.
Yeah,
like, no one always gives you negatives. So sort of the one-to-ones and stuff you have with someone, and I love giving that too.
Yeah, definitely.
I enjoy that.
Do you know what? One of the biggest development areas for me personally as a leader is I'm really bad at giving feedback, and I know I'm really bad at it. And if my team are listening, I pride myself on having really high expectations and trying to drive sort of excellent performance, and I'm really proud of how the team perform and how we're performing over and above what we should be as a business, but I don't think I'm good enough at giving that feedback. One of my colleagues, funnily, Sarah, if she's listening, Sarah probably wouldn't listen, to be fair, but if Sarah's listening, I told her that she'd done a good job once, and she said, "I so would." And she sent me a GIF on WhatsApp of, Will Smith as at Hancock, the superhero who can't give the policeman good feedback, and he gets told that he's got to give him good feedback, and he goes, "Good job," pats him on the back really wooden. She sent me a GIF of that because of how unnatural it was for me to tell her that she'd done a good job, which is, again, fantastic feedback, isn't it? Because obviously I can take that and make sure that I try and be a bit more natural about the way I do that.
I'm really surprised at that, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't expect you to be like that.
So, well, it's I think when I recognise that feedback's needed, I can do it really naturally. But sometimes because my expectations are really high, I kind of just shrug my shoulders and go, I kind of expect that anyway. But actually, like, people need to be told that they've done a good job, like, that's so important. So it's a development area for me, the one that I really try and focus on anyway. Anyway, I've massively digressed, because, not taking it personally, that really resonated with me, what you were saying about AHDT Teamwear and people choosing to use other businesses and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow, I've been on a real journey with that. That's when you go and set up a business, you just expect, like, all your friends, all your family, everyone's going to buy your shit. They're all going to be jumping over themselves to help support you, and actually no one really gives a fuck, No. And they're just going to buy what's best for them. And I chat about this. I'm seeing my friend Ben on Sunday, and Ben and I have, like, grown up together from primary school, and he runs a farm shop in Cambridge.
Okay.
Very random, but him and his wife live on a farm, and they've had the farm shop for lots and lots of years. And we grew up around Cambridge, so I think we've talked about it a lot, because, right, all of our friends, all of his family, they all eat, right, and he's got a farm shop, right, and but they all still shop in Tesco's, right, because it's convenient and it's cheap and all of those things. And Ben shared it with me loads of times before, but he gave me that as advice when I started, because he'd been doing it for so long, and he said, people won't be bothered about what you do and that kind of thing, and he goes, it'll break you. Sometimes it'll feel like breaking you when your family don't come and eat with you, or they don't come and buy your stuff. Because you just expect them to think about it, because you're so heavily invested in what you're doing and you're so committed to it. And I didn't really understand what he meant until I was there. And it's like, you might be on Facebook and you see, for us, for example, I'm like literally, early days fighting tooth and nail to fill training courses and to get people in, and we're so sort of pumped on stuff. And then you'll see like a member of your family share a training certificate they've done, like that you could have provided them with someone else, and you're like,
you spent all the time talking to them about it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And
Like they've just forgotten about it, right? They've just forgotten, or they found it cheaper, or whatever it may be. And basically the formula to get it right. Well, I don't know. I think people will buy when the offer's right and the time's right. And normally what you have to accept is either your offer wasn't right or the timing wasn't right, basically. So and it's quite as simple as that. And generally speaking, they don't feel as emotionally connected to it as what we do.
Not even close.
So that's definitely really strong feedback there. Okay, cool. So that's about not taking it personally. Next one, patience. Certainly that's something that I've needed to develop as well personally, because we're all impatient, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about that.
I think it's one for me personally. I'm probably not the most patient person in anything. And sort of when I was given the opportunity in the business, I was like looking really far away. But I think what I've learned to do is just be patient, because 100 things can land in your lap that you want to change, but you can only do a few at a time. So just be patient. It's getting 1% better each step we move forward. So patience in yourself, patience with other people. Other people have a life, Kim. They can't do everything when you say so. So yeah, I think it's just learning. I'm still working on that. There's still times that you're quite impatient, quite impulsive, but yeah, I think for business you really need to step back. And my dad always tells me something like, if it's too good to be true, it is. Yeah. And he said that on a few occasions to me, and he's always been bloody right. So again,
Dad.
Is that patience and that research, and just I feel like it's one for me to work on, but it's on the list. Yeah,
I think really important. I think patience is a virtue. It is a genuine virtue, and it's something that I've often been challenged with. I don't know if it's the millennial in me, but you're not even a millennial, are you? You're like a zennial, or whatever it's called, a Gen Z. Gen Z? I'm Gen Y. Yeah, I'm Gen Y. You must be Gen Z.
Yeah. 97,
yeah, definitely Gen Z. Wow, I'm 11 years older than Kim.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, we'll move on. Stop making me feel old. So, patience. I really struggled with that, and a real game changer for me. Have you ever watched Simon Sinek's video on millennials?
No,
I'll have to show you after the podcast. Amazing. But yeah, it's kind of, we're a generation who've been sort of brought up on like instant gratification, like literal instant gratification all the time. Like literally, I can take a photo of us having this chat now. I can post it online. I've got 7,000 LinkedIn followers, and all of a sudden I'll be getting these dopamine hits of people going like, comment, awesome, cool, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. Yep. And I can just get this gratification straight away, and it's kind of not real though. Simon Sinek talks about it really well, but I really struggled in when I started out. I worked in a business probably not too dissimilar to this really, but a company called Gladwin's Body Repair Centres, and in my 20s, prior to that I'd done sort of other work with pubs and restaurants and that kind of thing, but in my 20s working for them, I just wanted this constant like thirst for knowledge and development and things like that, and I was so impatient. I wanted a manager role, I wanted to earn more money. And the owner just said to me, I think I was probably a similar age to you actually. I was probably a bit younger. I reckon I was about 22, 23. And I went to the gaffer and I said to him, I want a workshop controller role, I want a manager's role. I'm the best estimator in the company. I had such a high opinion of myself. I probably was. And if any of my old colleagues are listening, I think I still hold the record for best sales. But anyway, I went to him, I wanted a manager, and he just looked at me and he said, Pete, he goes, just slow down. He said, I'm not interested in you becoming a manager until you're about 30. And literally, like, that was like the worst thing anyone could have said to me. It was like literally like, you mean I've got to put up with this shit for another 7 years? Like, what the fuck? So I was just like, no way, I'm not waiting around for that. So I left, right, which is like bold. That was pretty bold. I left and I actually took a worse paid job, but at a national company called Nationwide Crash Repairs, and I became a workshop controller. And the difference was my basic for the estimating role, which was in that business, was a bit of a sales role, so I'd get commission and sort of that sort of thing, and there was bonus to be made, and I had a company car, and I sort of forego the company car, started travelling to Peterborough from Cambridge, took the workshop controller's role, and started managing the workshop, managing people, that kind of thing. And it paid off, right? So I then got given a relief manager's role with one of the other depots. I had to travel to Lincoln for it, and then probably at the age of around 24, because I was only there about a year, I got a phone call from Harvey who said to me, "Pete, we've got the general manager's role available at Peterborough, are you interested?" And I was like, "But I'm not 30 yet, Harvey." And he was like, "Are you going to be cocky with me, or are you going to come in for an interview?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come in for an interview." So yeah, I went back after a year's sabbatical, but obviously I'd forced the hand a little bit with that. So sometimes, I guess the moral of that story is sometimes impatience paid off, but that could have just as easily not paid off for me. It could not have gone for me at all. Yeah. It did work out in the end, which was great. But when it comes to sort of like building flagship, like I think early on I could have suffered less with burnout and challenge and all that sort of thing from literally I've always wanted things yesterday. And what I found particularly when I left Gladwin's, the reason I shared Gladwin's was actually things happened quite quickly there, because they were a relatively sort of small to medium sized business. I think they were like £12 million turnover, sort of regional type business. I moved to Volvo Trucks. Yeah. Huge Swedish-based company, as you know, and then they have like this UK business, and it was so corporate. Everything took forever to happen. Like decision making, like God, literally, like I can pick up a phone and make things happen. I used to get really frustrated. I ran this depot, and we had what was called REX, which was their called retail excellence, they called it, and it was their customer service feedback. And I'd receive, and part of my bonus was on that, but I wouldn't receive feedback for like 3 months from customers, because that's how long it took them to process the feedback. And everything just took so long. I found it massively frustrating. I was like, wow. And corporate careers are for some people that, you know, that, and that's fine. For some people, that's absolutely fine, but it definitely wasn't my bag. Or I had great development opportunity. I had loads of training and stuff like that, so I'm forever grateful for the experience I got. But long term, I couldn't, you know, they had people in that business who'd been working there for 30, 40, 50 years. And I certainly couldn't manage that, because I used to love being able to walk upstairs to the gaffer, and I'd knock on his door and we'd have a conversation, and shit would happen. Yep. And I've just always had that sort of level of impatience, I suppose. So, but what I found with Flagship is even now I think some of my staff sometimes suffer, because when it was like just me or Mags and I, you know, we were really agile. I could make things happen really quickly because I'd just do something different. But even now, as the team's growing, we're up to like 8 people. Obviously, we're still a very small business, but things happen slower, and I'm like, why hasn't that happened yet? I want this to happen. And yeah, I'm always thinking sort of 10 times ahead. So, did any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Okay,
totally
cool.
Agree.
But yeah, so, and then sort of rounding that back to the Simon Sinek video around millennials. So I watched that probably only like 3 or 4 years ago, and it just started making total sense around, essentially we've been sort of, and people refer to like snowflakes and stuff like that, but actually that is very negative. It's not a very positive thing to happen. But essentially, I've been a lot of my generation onwards are really impatient, because we're just so used to stuff happening really quickly and things being slow and what have you. But business is slow sometimes. It takes time. That's the problem.
It's hard to get your head around, because you watch other people do it and it just looks so easy. You don't see inside people's struggles, and I think that took me some time to really look into what mum and dad have faced, what I faced myself, and what when you look into other people, it's not as rosy as it might look on the outside. So yeah, I think patience is one that I'm learning. It's
definitely a virtue. And like the other thing is, like, people say like to slow down and just enjoy the journey, because I think what I've realised increasingly is that in my head, and I don't know if it was the way I've been brought up or just me personally, and that's the way I'm wired, but you kind of have this thing of it will be okay when, or you have like this destination where you want to be, but you realise like when you hit that destination, like there's something else that you want to achieve anyway. So it's kind of realising that life is just like a load of like suffering and waiting and being patient as you like trying to develop towards a goal, and actually you never really realise it, because essentially we're just wired up to progress all the time and always move. So actually just like enjoy the journey a little bit more. That's something I tell myself all the time anyway.
Yeah. I
feel like I've just waffled on anyway. There you go, my life story as well. Kim, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we're through your half dozen things. How's it been?
It's good. I definitely need to work on my public speaking. I think the big headsets put me off, but no.
I do apologise. Really I do apologise. Yeah, the headsets they're a little bit frustrating, aren't they?
No, I was saying to Pete, I think once you sit down and think of one or two and you're really struggling, and then when you get the ball rolling, you could come up with sort of a dozen things to talk about. But
definitely, I think you've picked a really cool half dozen things. I think people have got loads of value out of that. So I do really appreciate it. So Kim, the last thing for us to discuss is if people are interested to find out more about Dalrod, the company, franchises, that kind of thing, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so for Dalrod, they should check out the website. Everything's on there that they'll need, www.dalrod.co.uk. Cool. And then for myself, it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just Kim Lane. You'll find me anywhere.
And what's your favourite platform?
I don't post on TikTok, but I can watch it for hours.
Oh, really?
I love TikTok. And there's actually, it's really gross. There's like drainage TikToks.
Oh, nice.
Where you watch them unblock a drain, and it's really sick and twisted, but they're quite interesting. Once you watch one, they're quite satisfying. But no, I'm a big Instagram fan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm such an old fuddy-duddy liking LinkedIn, aren't I? So if you want to connect with Kim Lane, and if people are interested in Teamwear, where should they go?
Yeah, again, we're big on the Facebook and Instagram on HD Teamwear, so it's at HD Teamwear. And yeah, if you'll check us out, give us a message.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much for joining me, Kim. Really appreciate it. I hope listeners have found that interesting and insightful. I think there's been some fantastic value and some real nuggets there. So thank you very much for joining me, Kim. If you've listened and you've enjoyed it, please do share it with people. Please do check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn. Obviously, Dalrod is the company that Kim's from, and do follow them. Make sure you use them. If you get any blocked drains, you know where to call. And obviously, my business is Flagship Partners. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram too. I don't really do Instagram because I'm a little bit old, but certainly on LinkedIn, or I'm Pete Rushmer. Half dozen things, or check out the podcast Fleet Geeks too. Please do share it, and catch you soon. Take care.
I really hope you loved today's episode, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe and listen out for future episodes too. Please do share it across your social media channels. We hope to reach more and help more people. If you want to find out more about me, my name's Pete Rushmer. You'll find me across any social media channel, and my business, Flagship Partners, and we're your partners in success across your business. Thank you. See you again soon.